I think I heard Jelly Roll talk about this. He goes, God didn't bless me a day too early.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, if I would have had the opportunities I have today, even the Tony Robbins stage, one year earlier, I wouldn't have been ready. Like, understand, this is the process. I think it was Chris Williamson said, he goes, the irony of life is that it only makes sense looking backwards, but you got to live it forward.
Dan Martell was in prison at the age of 17. 10 years later, he's a millionaire after he discovered that he loved coding. 10 years later, he owns about 100 companies and is an investor in about 100 more. He's unbelievably successful, and now he's coaching others and he's coaching you. How did he actually get there? How did he make this life? How did he build this life? We're going to talk to Dan Martell about how he did it, why he did it, what happened that led him to do it. You're going to get to know Dan Martell in a way you've never seen him before. All right, loving this interview. Here we go. Dan Martell, without question, you qualify as a master coach. You've succeeded in two areas of life. Business, you were Canada's angel investor of the universe.
Yeah, that's
the name of the title.
That was almost a decade ago, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, still, you succeeded in understanding which businesses to buy into and why and all that kind of stuff. And then you turned around and you started coaching other people, and especially through this book, Buy Back Your Time. We had some, we have a shared workspace. People can come into work if they want. We actually had people show up today just to meet you because they were huge fans.
Oh, no way.
And I hear it's like thousands of dollars to get any time with you. So maybe we owe you some money for that. But this interview is really about how'd you get here and what happened in your life to bring you here. And it's been a rocky road.
Yeah.
Walk me all the way back to, before you started figuring out that I would imagine you're in control of your life. If crap happens, it's your fault.
Yeah, we're going
way back. There was a day when you didn't understand that. Is that right?
Yeah.
How far back is that?
My teen years my life could have went left or right. And, when people say, it's like, wow, you really came from nothing. I'm like, humbly, I think I came from a massive hole. I ended up in prison or juvenile detention twice by the time I was 17.
Before we get there, what was happening in your home that had you?
I'm the second oldest of four. My mom struggled with alcohol, so we had addiction in our home. My dad was trying to do his best, trying to make ends meet, so he was traveling for work a lot. He was a sales guy, so meeting with clients all over the place. I think I got diagnosed with ADHD when I was 11. And, the story I told myself at the time is, I must be broken. Like, why would they ask me to take these pills? And it just changed who I was. I just...
The pills and the identity. Yeah.
That was it. Those pills and just...
Was it Adderall or what was it?
Yeah, Ritalin originally.
Yeah.
I eventually got onto Adderall. But it was just a lot of... And then anger issues. I'm a byproduct of therapy. So I know why I did it now. But back then, I wanted my dad around. So I knew that if I did a big blow up at home.
Did you feel like him going off to sell stuff and honestly provide for the family did you take that as a statement of my dad doesn't like being with me or want to be around or think I'm worth it or any of that? Or was that happening subconsciously at all?
It was probably subconscious around that. I remember this one morning, because again, I'm the second oldest of four. My sister's oldest of the boys, my two younger brothers. I remember when my baby brother was born, and I remember like Saturday mornings, we hadn't seen him, wake up and I run into his bedroom to go give him a hug, and he was holding my baby brother and kind of shooed me away. So there was kind of, he was like, don't wake up the baby, go.
Yeah.
And so there was like animosity towards my little brother, and he obviously doesn't love me as much. So there was a lot of pain. We make up the stories, and I just made up a bunch of stories, and I didn't understand this until, some serious, my own addiction. I got introduced to drugs. I got taken out of my home when I was 12, put into foster care.
Because of something your parents were doing, or because they couldn't handle you?
They couldn't handle me.
You were just off the walls.
I was making holes in walls. Yeah, I would just see red, push me the wrong way. I would go nuclear, and, as I became a teenager, 12, 13, I'm starting to develop, my dad couldn't really do anything. And that was when they didn't feel safe. And I don't blame them. I mean, I would say the craziest things. So they didn't feel safe having me in the home.
Wow.
Yeah.
What were you in prison for?
I ended up the first time.
How old were you?
First time I went away was 15.
15 years old.
Yeah, 15.
Juvie or
yeah,
what we would call juvie?
Juvie the first time. I went for 2 months for drug-related charges and shoplifting and kind of assault, kind of minor stuff. The second time, though, was a high-speed chase, possession of firearms. That was...
You were in there for over a year then?
I got sentenced to almost 2.
Okay.
I did, because of my background and kind of the situation that I got arrested in, I got put into an adult prison. So now we're talking at 16.
Wow.
And that was an eye-opener. I honestly didn't think I would get out of the, because I mean, most people, I meet these kids and they've been there for 4 years. Like once you're in it, you might get out, but you're back 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
So there was a period where I just kind of thought, I've just got to settle in. Like I can fight it, I can be upset about it, I can cry myself to sleep so many times until maybe this is just my reality.
Was there a lot of people have a moment where they just say, hey, this isn't working. Was prison helpful or hurtful in terms of you realizing this is not the way I can live? I can't live this way anymore.
I've come to realize that rock bottom is required so that God can remind you he's the rock at the bottom.
You describe rock bottom then for you.
I would say the moment that changed everything for me, where I hit the lowest, was I got in a fight over some stupid coffee. And we got, essentially the guards rushed the unit and grabbed us and they threw us into, it's called solitary confinement, but it's the hole. And you're locked up 23 and a half hours a day, concrete bed, no mattress, in your underwear. And I remember at 17-year-olds.
How long were you in there?
They don't tell you. It's part of the
weeks or
days.
Days.
I ended up, I think at the end of it, I was there for 3 days. But I just remember sitting there just at 17 years old, just like staring at the, whatever it was, stainless steel toilet sink combo and just being like, maybe I should just take my life.
At 16. Yeah.
On the third day, it was crazy as the door opens and there's this guy standing there, this guard named Brian. And Brian wasn't working the day the fight happened, but Brian's the kind of guy, I hope people have him. I had him in my life, I just didn't know them, but like a man's man. Like, you know what I mean? Like he didn't say a lot, but when he spoke, you listened. And if you treated him right, he'd look the other way if you want a second dessert. Like, so when he stood there disappointed, just staring at me, I felt horrible because I knew he expected more from me. So anyways, he takes me out, gives me my clothes, we walk back, and we go past the door, which is the unit, to the guard unit. And like in prison, you walk with your hands behind your back down certain hallways to the right. You deviate, you're gonna get hit. Like it's not a decision. And he walks past the door and opens up the guard unit and asked me to follow him. And I thought it was a test. I was like, and he said, no, it's okay, come on in. Anyways, he sits me down and pulls a chair up in front of me. And at 16, he looks at me and he says, you don't belong here. You need to understand, Dan, you don't belong here. And if nobody's ever told you this, I believe in you.
Holy crap.
And
that is a pivotal identity shift. If you can believe what he's saying, just the power of one man's words to say, this is actually not who you are and not who you're going to be. That could change your life.
I was racing in my head, like, why is he saying this? He's not my caseworker. He could get in trouble.
But he didn't say, if you keep doing this, you're going to end up here again.
No.
He didn't say, he said, you do not belong here.
He literally said, I've watched you stay out of the politics, the prison politics. I've watched you do your homework. I watched you work on your GED. I've worked here for 10 years. The rest of the kids, you're not like them. And you need to get out of here. And I mean, I had zero, I was contemplating taking my life. I didn't believe I deserved to breathe the air. I felt like I'm taking a spot that somebody else should probably have. And here he is saying that I don't belong there. I mean, it planted a seed in me that I was like, I broke down. And that was the beginning. And it took a long time to get out of that darkness. It took, years, but that's the moment he planted a seed, and I just kind of watered it a little bit. And 3 months later, I got released to a rehab center that saved my life, changed my life.
Yeah. What were you on? What were you addicted
Everything.
to?
I was addicted to not feeling.
Whatever you could find.
What do you got? You got pills? People say, what was your drug of choice? Not feeling. Period, full stop. I was just in a lot of pain, and,
You said therapy was a big part of your life. Faith sounds like too.
Today,
it's been a big part of your life.
Yeah, I didn't know Jesus the way I know him today back then, but
I'm curious about how that happened. What's the faith journey? What Brian didn't tell you about Jesus.
No, he didn't. No. It's funny because I remember I got in this high-speed chase and I woke up sober in a jail cell, and I kind of turned to God when I was 16. And I was just like, if you're real, I could use some help. And if you help me, I remember this conversation I had with God. I said, if you could help me, I'll be good. There was no plan of doing anything other than I'll stop breaking the law. And I didn't hear anything.
Something must have happened.
Dude, something must have happened.
Yeah.
He was there the whole time.
Yeah. So a lot of guys who are wired like you don't go to therapists, right? They're not honest about their
they don't want
stuff.
To know. Yeah.
And how did that enter into your life? That self-awareness, self-analyzing.
Well, as a family, we went. So what happens, I went into foster care, and part of the caseworker was we had to do family therapy, and then I ended up getting kicked out of the foster home into a group home, and I was in the system. So therapy, there was always there.
You're always meeting with counselors trying to figure it out.
Oh my gosh. I was sitting there not talking.
Yeah.
I was sitting there judging I was like, what? You don't know anything. You've never been in a fight in your life. You've never been in a turmoil in your life. You probably came from a perfect family. What are you going to tell me? That was when I think I have this belief that we're best created to help people we once were, and really to become the person we needed most. I wake up every day to try to be the person 15-year-old Dan would have listened to. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, even at my level today, I know how stubborn I was. I wouldn't listen to me. Maybe I'll never get that. I don't know. It's energy and word choice. I don't know. But so I always had therapy in my life. But I think it was failing in business and then eventually getting a business coach. That was probably where I got back to it. So I went I finally got sober, kind of started in business, failed a lot, just
Yeah,
trying.
So there's 16.
Yeah,
How
17 I get out of rehab.
Got out of rehab at 17. Did you start coding right in there? Did you find some?
This is what's crazy. That's why I get emotional when I talk about God. At the end of my 11 months of rehab, every day, it was in the middle of the woods. I was there. I lived there. Most kids did 6 months. I had to do 11. I had some stuff to work through, some demons. At the end of that, I'm helping the maintenance guy, this guy named Rick, clean out one of the cabins. He was building an old church camp. And there was a room they opened up, and there's an old computer, 486 computer, dusted, little yellow book on Java programming. And I just opened it up, and it read like ink. I could read it, which I was surprised. I thought computer code would be complex. And I just started the computer up and followed the instructions to get the terminal window, and just started tapping away and reading the thing, and tap, 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 and reading. And then I hit enter.
And it dot matrix out a picture of a spaceship.
No, it literally said, "Hello world."
Wow. That's amazing. That's kind of a prophetic moment, right?
I thought, maybe my brain is different. Maybe I'm a troublemaker because my brain works better for this stuff, not the way the world is. And that's cool. And if I did that, and this was crazy, is code became my new addiction. And I didn't know it at the time, but I come out and I become, because there's something, I grew up in so much chaos that when you actually write software code, and I'm sure like artists feel this way when they're in flow, it just became certainty. Because every time you write something, as long as the computer's running,
it's predictable if you did it right.
It literally will do the same thing for the rest of eternity, as long as there's power to the machine. So I came from uncertain, like I didn't know what kind of mom I was gonna get that day, to if I just do this, it'll always do this. And I just fell in love with the, headphones on and just write code, and that's all I did. So the business side was almost like I just don't want to work for somebody else because I was too opinionated.
Yeah.
And I wanted.
Well, did you go from learning to code to working for somebody else, or did you figure out how to monetize that?
No, I mean I monetized a few things, but I lost more money than I made. I would spend all my money on servers. This is back in the day when there was no Amazon Web Service. I had to buy physical hardware and build my machine and go find somebody to give me an Ethernet. Like I needed to plug it to the internet. This is early days, 97. So I made a little bit of money, but I spent more, and I started a vacation rental site and shut that one down. Did another one, web hosting company because I was hosting.
Where'd the entrepreneur bug come from, though?
I was always
your dad's a salesman. Your mom wasn't an entrepreneur, and you're suddenly.
My dad.
There is something in the wiring of an entrepreneur where they say, "I'm going to make something and charge for it." That is, I've just discovered, is not in the wiring of most people. Because I'm like, why don't you just go? And they're like, I don't even know the language that you're talking about. They don't see it.
Yeah.
And thank God they don't see it, because we all need teams.
We need a team. Yeah. There can only be so many of us. I think the business side I got from my dad, because my dad would always talk. He had an early car phone. So I had the blessing of learning about negotiation, sales.
You were hearing all that.
Yeah, monkey see, monkey do.
Yeah.
You hear it. Literally, my assistant yesterday, Ann, said, I just talked to your dad. I can see where you get your gift of gab. I said, I love my dad. Victor's his name. He's just the coolest. And then I would say the risk taking from my mom. So my mom was like YOLO. Every day, you just live life. Don't worry about tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, she's just so that's where I got it from. But my dad always joked, like I was entrepreneurial, just nothing I did was legal.
Right.
Like there's a reason why I got in trouble selling stuff. So, so he thought if I could just find something that I was passionate about that wasn't illegal, I'd do well. And I remember when I got out of rehab, I had two passions: botany, maybe for people to figure out why. So I love plants, or computers. And he's the one that said, you can have a garden as a hobby, but you should really double click on this computer thing. And then, this 97 little thing, the internet comes out and turns out to be a massive deal. So
what was your first big, first of all, what's your home life like? I mean, you're starting to code, you're starting to figure out your entrepreneurial instincts. Is there a woman comes along, you were engaged and then broke it off?
That was when I was like 20, yeah.
Was that a pivotal foundational?
For the book, yeah.
What do you mean for the book? For the story or for writing a book?
For the things I had to build to not do that again.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So that was my first successful company, software company that I started when I was 24, and I just knew how to work. So I went from 17 to 24.
And that's 7 years. That's an incredible.
And not side hustle. Yeah. Like people being like, maybe you should get a job. But here's the benefit I had. Nobody expected anything from me, and as long as I was sober and I wasn't getting in trouble with the law, I was winning.
You were crushing it.
Oh,
yeah.
They were like, oh, just, okay, so what? You don't succeed. So some people, I feel bad for them when they come from a family where the expectation's really high. Like, you should have went to university and be one of your top in your class. There was zero. Like, people were like, is Dan still alive? Yeah, okay, good. Like, that was winning. So, but what happened was I read computer books, like 100 of them. I did my Microsoft Certified Solution Developer certification. Like I just nerded out and became obsessed, really addicted to writing code and software and the internet. And I never read a business book. So the first book, I read a few books early, but one of the early ones was a book on systems that changed my whole life. And I hired a business coach. I was like, you know what? That concept makes sense. And I know that people can help because I've gone through therapy. So I said, maybe I should hire somebody to help me the business side. And the first year we started that company, I went from failing, making maybe at most 50 grand a year, to 960,000.
In how long?
1 year.
Wow. In your own business?
As my company, I started it, hired my business coach, Bob, he literally,
Best money you've ever spent.
yeah, well, it was funny is I didn't have the money to hire him. I had 2 months. I had to sign a 1-year contract. I had enough money to pay him for 2 months. And my thought was, if he's good,
Yeah.
I'll be able to pay him the third month. Turns out, but not that all he taught me. I mean, he just had a system. First thing he made me do is write my eulogy. Can you imagine at 24?
No, that's early.
I sat down, he gave me the quadrants. He said, I need you to write down, what would you want people to say about you in the business context, in the community context, your family context, your relationships, and I'm like that took 2 weeks for me to sit down and try to write it. So then now it's begin with the end in mind. Later on, I learned these concepts, but the idea of building systems at 24, he's like, you have this thing you sell, you need to learn how to document how you do it so that you can hire other people. So having somebody, now he'll say, nobody he ever met or coached executed like me. Like I wouldn't even want to finish the phone call. I'm like,
yeah, you're on
heard,
it. Yeah.
heard.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Which is true that is a true characteristic for every very successful person that I know.
Default to action.
Very default to action. In fact, I've known people, you are not one of them, who I've actually struggled to understand if they were intelligent enough to eat breakfast, and they're killing it because they just move.
Yeah.
They just do things.
They go.
Yeah, they go.
And guess what? That's what I did. That's why, like when I said I went through some pain, all I knew was that. It turns out that doesn't make a good relationship.
Yeah.
It turns out my fiance at the time wanted to be in a relationship, not in relations. I was like, so there was a lot of massive pain, even though I became a multimillionaire. I became a cash millionaire at 27. So in 3 years, I remember my accountant Alan calling me up.
From prison to multimillionaire in 10 years.
Yeah, 10. Yeah. He called me up. I was 27. Yeah, you're right. 17. I never put the math together. 10 years. He called me up and he said, hey, you want to hear something cool? I said, what's that? I remember where I was at. He goes, you've got $1 million in cash in your bank account. Like taxes paid, retained earnings, like it's yours. And I was like, is that good? That's my response. Is that good? He goes, yes, Dan, that's good. I'm like, cool. Back to work. Like I didn't.
What am I going to do with that?
Yeah. And then I got super fortunate. A year later, US company was looking to expand and they needed our technology. So we got acquired. I became a multimillionaire, but in the same 4-month period, right before that happened, my fiance left me. So wow, that was a big shock. Like everything I've been building towards all of a sudden went away on the personal side. And here I was, successful, rich, whatever, and never felt more empty in my life.
Yeah. And she left you, so there's another bit of sort of rejection and self-analysis that probably had to happen there.
I went 6 months legit contemplating if I ever should be in another relationship. Because I didn't want to hurt anybody the way I hurt her. I didn't want to feel that kind of pain.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, Dan, maybe you should just resolve to being like the rich uncle. You know, that cool uncle that everybody loves.
Yeah.
Flies around the world. And what does he do? I don't really know, but he's rich and he's cool. And I was just like, maybe that's just me. Maybe.
How did you go to, I remember somebody looking me in the eye, because I broke off an engagement too. And I remember somebody looking me in the eye years later saying, you were good at relationships. And I just clung to that. Didn't believe it. But I just thought, well, I don't know what you're seeing, but maybe there's a glimmer of hope. Was there anything like that?
No.
Well, you had to become confident at some point to say, I can be a good husband, a good dad.
It was after I figured out how to build the next thing. Because that's where the buyback principle came from. The need to want to create, because I like to build stuff. Like as much as people follow me today and they look at my social media, or they see my coaching stuff, like I'm actually an operator. I build companies all the time. That's why I spend 70% of my day is working with CEOs or companies I've bought or whatever. Like I love that aspect of, the edges, because I want to learn. I just do things to learn. And I moved to San Francisco from Canada. And if it wasn't for a handful of incredible people that I just happened to meet out and about, guys like today, they know him, like Naval Ravikant, who's, Naval's been on Joe Rogan. He's very well known.
Yeah, I know the name.
Yeah, no, he's kind of the tech Buddha. Like, I mean, he's a philosopher, but he's also one of the most successful. I was an angel investor of the year in Canada. He's the angel investor of the century. Like early in Uber, he's made more money. And I just happened to meet him at a Canadian embassy party in 2008. And just moving down there and seeing how these 23-year-old, 24-year-old kids build $100 million companies in 7 years made me realize I was doing it totally wrong.
Huh.
So that was the beginning.
What's the main thing? Was it systems?
that you saw that they were using or existing frameworks?
I'll tell everybody it's cool. Once you know, you can't unknow it.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of the most profound things, hopefully, you ever hear about building the company, is if you actually pull back and say, business is nothing but leverage. Period, full stop. Like, you have a unit of time and you create an output. And to the degree that you take a unit of time and you generate an output, and if you use the measuring as, let's say, increase in enterprise value, EV, because cash doesn't matter. It's like enterprise value. Did you build a machine that other people will want to buy and there's value there? So unit of time to EV production is kind of the way I think about it. The thing that you got to learn is leverage. Like,
how do I leverage my time?
Yeah, system
especially.
System, people, all that. These are levers.
It's yeah. Okay.
Okay. So then the question is, well, what are the categories of things that help you with leverage? And what Naval taught me is there's only 4. And he calls them similar, but I just call them the 4 C's of leverage. The first one is content, which you just talked about, which is standard operating procedures. And I would say videos, and I would say any media even. Like, think about the fact that if you sit down and write a checklist for how to create the perfect cake or cookie, that 10 million people could make that cookie, and it won't take you any extra effort other than the effort it went into creating the recipe. Okay, or a video, a training video. I could create one training video to train people how to be a video editor, and if it was well done, it could help a lot. So content was the first one. The second one, and a lot of entrepreneurs never understand how to create SOPs. They're like, somebody else does that. Okay, but it's actually the skill.
Yeah.
Like, your book, Coach Builder, is an SOP.
Mm-hmm.
And millions of people are gonna build a coaching business because you understood how to package it and do that. So content's one of them. The second one is capital, right? I don't believe it takes money to make money. It takes resourcefulness to make money. But there's certain things that if you have capital, you can invest to grow more. That's why Silicon Valley was built on fundraising, because there's innovation that needs R&D and it needs servers, and there's hard costs. So capital is required if you want to scale, because if not, you know this, fast-growing business is the sound of money flying out the door. It's like, you think
it's harder actually to manage. Rapid growth financing is a mess.
Dude,
it's the scariest.
FP&A.
I've been in business for 20 years now. I was the president of a publishing company. It was my first big break. And we were exploding. And I remember thinking, why do we never have any money? We are making so much money. And of course, it's 90-day terms, and then inventory,
cash flow,
rental, whatever, and all that stuff.
Yeah, FP&A, financial planning analysis, is a skill. So capital is required for scale. Again, I'm talking about like unlimited scale. It's leverage. Capital, we talked about content. Third is code. So code is, yes, software, automation, but also like today, AI. Like if you're not, if your team,
amazing.
Every day, like if your team's not using AI, it's impossible for them to be as efficient as they could be, because you can literally talk to the corpus of the world. Like it's the coolest thing in the world. So software. Now, luckily, I'm a software programmer. I understand workflows. I understand business processes. So like the software side was pretty dialed in. But the fourth one was collaboration, which is people. And that's what I didn't understand. And the big thing that I'll tell you, millionaires build systems. Billionaires build people.
That's fascinating. Elaborate on that. What do you mean?
So most people that are trying to be successful, they'll build the SOPs and the systems, and I get that part. It's kind of table stakes, so it's kind of just required, right? The standard, whatever your whatever you want to call it. But wealthy people build people around them, and they actually spend more time building the
Jim
people.
Collins. I mean, this is his Becoming an Entrepreneur, or whatever that book that is even better than Good to Great.
And that nobody talks about, but is the better book. Yeah,
it is the better book.
Yeah.
At 53 and having been in business a long time, there's a part of me that believes I had to figure out the need for processes and create them, and the need for cash flow and create it and fees. At 53, I'm now realizing it's all about people.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally who you hire. Do you like them? Do you enjoy hanging out?
Do they teach you things?
I used to think just hire people who are motivated by money. Now I think the exact opposite. Pay them well, but you can't. It's got to be people who are motivated by excellence and drive,
and they either come that way,
and creativity and fun. They come that way, or they don't.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to teach people that.
Yeah,
I need to filter.
But it is people. So walk me through your journey of figuring, because a lot of guys who are wired like you, they're they're mavericks. They're independent. They're not team oriented. It's not how they think.
So to give everybody context, like today I run a portfolio of companies that do over 100 million a year. Okay, it's very profitable. I own a lot of companies, 15, 16 companies. I have CEOs.
All out, or are you percentage in all of them?
Different scenarios for different things.
Yeah.
But the 16 are companies I have a majority. And then I'm also an investor in over 100 companies where I'm a minority investor. But my coaching businesses, I mean, the new one I just started, we did 16 million in the first year.
In the coaching business?
Yes,
Yeah.
and we'll do 30 million next year. And I think it gets to 50. I mean, I can talk about growth ceilings and why that might be the upper limit or not. I don't know, but it's not my problem because Todd runs it.
Yeah. So do you have a family office that's running all the, that's got their heads in all the books?
Yeah.
How many people, just curious, how many people are in your family office?
Probably 6.
So that's not too bad.
No, I like 6 and look, we have like tax experts.
Yeah,
but,
you're a tax expert.
But I have my core team
guy.
of people for the foundation, for the venture stuff, the real estate stuff. So, but the big thing for me is I used to think I wrote code. Okay, code's cool. And then when I understood the 4 C's of leverage, I went nerdy. I was like, okay, every book on capital stacks, I went deep on finance and private equity just to understand it because I would say they know it best. I went all in on, the automation of business processes and systems and understanding how that structure works. But the collaboration one is the one where I realized the people building, it wasn't hiring even. It was developing your people. Because like a lot of business owners hire people and they get mad because they don't know how to do the thing. It's like, tell me how you learned that thing. Well, you're right. I read these 7 books. I went to these seminars for 6 years and I got these scars. And okay, so you went through to learn. If you want that person to do it the way you're going to do it, you have to coach them.
Yeah.
So if you look at my calendar, that is what I do with my time. I'm in meetings, and not meetings to create, meetings to coach. So now I just launched a new program because my new Martell Ventures, we're launching 1 to 2 companies a month. So I have a program called my EIR program, Entrepreneur in Residence. So now what I've done is I go back to the people I've known for a decade that I've helped build and scale and exit companies.
Yeah.
And now I say, hey, do you want to collaborate on a new thing? They're like, well, I don't know what to build. I said, cool. It's called EIR. My EIRs sit next to me and shadow me on all my meetings. So in my book, I talk about the camcorder
you're multiplying, somebody said to me once, Don, your problem with relationships is they're not profitable.
Somebody said that?
Somebody said that. He said what they were saying was you're having trouble figuring out why you should have lunch with that person. And that's not relationships. Yeah. And I've realized, I think he was right to a degree. He was very, very helpful.
Yeah.
What he also said was, but life is about relationships. And so it's not that you're frustrated that they're not profitable. You're frustrated because you think the point of life is actually to be profitable. It's not.
That is the problem.
It's to connect. And then I found there's a hybrid that when you actually start connecting with people and do the unbelievably unprofitable work of doing so much more happens and gets done because there's trust and there's connection between the two of you.
Yeah.
That I can either make a 5 sales call, or take half a day with 6 guys who will turn around and make 30 a day. Mm-hmm. And then what did I just do? I just made 300 sales calls this week by not making one.
Yeah.
And as soon as but it's not about like forcing people, it's about literally connecting. I love that Colin Powell once said, he was head of Joint Chiefs and general here in America. He said, I've never ever said to anybody that's a command. He said, if I have to, I've failed, right?
You get the people
because the relationship is there.
They trust.
Yeah, the trust is there. And the integrity and the character and the belief in you is there.
It's so good.
It is so good, isn't it? But that's a skill that a lot of people, I don't think, learn until later in life.
But here's the thing I'll say to that is even like the sequencing of learning things, right? We actually, I don't know how we got connected originally, but I know that we both speak at Tony's
I think Mike
McCallowitz, you're right. Mike introduced us. But I've been wanting to meet with you through Tony's event, the Business Mastery event.
Yep.
Because I know you've been speaking a long time.
Yeah, he puts me on at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
That's why we've never met.
I've watched your sessions. I'm on the next morning. But, people ask me often about that experience because obviously to go from where I came from to reading Tony's books when I was in my early 20s to going to his events And I think it was 8 years ago, I was at Business Mastery and I wrote down a goal. Someday speak on his stage. And you understand, because I'm sure you get hit up as much as I do. There's a million people plus in the world that would love to speak on that stage.
Yeah.
It's, but I also tell people, and I think I heard Jelly Roll talk about this. We're in Nashville and I love Jelly. He's like one of my favorite
Met him?
guys. No, not yet. I want to meet him and we're going to be friends.
You will love it.
Okay, he doesn't know it yet, but
He's got a story very similar to yours.
I know, that's why I love what he does. And he said this recently, and he says it often. He goes, God didn't bless me a day too early.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, if I would have had the opportunities I have today, even the Tony Robbins stage, one year earlier, I wouldn't have been ready. I had to, like some people are like, I wish that wouldn't happen. No, let it, like understand, this is the process. And when I look at my life and again, somebody recently, I heard, I think it was Chris Williamson said, he goes, the irony of life is that it only makes sense looking backwards, but you got to live it forward.
Yeah.
And I think of that, it's like, I just trust when I got, earlier when I said I asked for God's help and I didn't believe in him, like I really didn't believe then. And dude, he's been there the whole time.
Yeah.
And he holds us back or tests us so that we can get ready to receive the thing we've been asking for. That's
life. The thing, that there's been things that I've prayed for, and I've stopped praying, God, can I have that?
No.
And it's usually a position of leadership or some sort of impact I can have on the world. And now I've prayed, God, I don't want it. I don't want to do this, but you're going to have to make me a better man. There's pain between me and where I want to be.
John, what did he call it? God's floor. He said, God, we can only go so high. And then we hit the ceiling and we have to ask God to help us. That last part that actually makes it work, that's him. So like I'm here as a servant. I'm here to, somebody in the last pod goes, well, when's enough's enough? I said, whenever he wants. Like I've already won. Like I'm not here because
all this is icing on the cake anyway.
There's nothing I'm doing because I feel like I don't have.
Yeah.
I'm trying to honor the opportunity.
Yeah. Dan, it's been a great conversation. You're a hell of a coach.
Well, I appreciate what you put out in the world. Story Brand's had a huge impact on my life.
I'm glad. Couldn't be helping a better guy.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for giving of yourself to our coaches.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Dan Martell. I want to thank Dan for opening up his heart. It's not often that you have somebody of his caliber who actually is willing to be honest. So grateful for Dan. I hope you learned something, but mostly I hope you were inspired. I hope that wherever you're at in life, you realize you can do a lot more, you can be a lot more, you can impact a lot more people. We're not here long, might as well make the most of it. Thanks, Dan, and thank you for watching.